roof levels were intentionally designed by lead architect Adrian Smith to provide some continuity with the building's older neighbors in the skyline. It's the second tallest building in Chicago, 1,388 feet or 423 meters tall, and it has 98 stories. Now on the right side of the boat, this dark steel rectangular building is the American Medical Association Plaza. AMA Plaza was originally IBM Tower, finished in 1973, designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Now, Mies van der Rohe was a pioneer of that style, dark steel, minimal ornamentation, rectangular patterns. Folks, the captain might have to sound a horn or a little whistle or something in a moment, just to let you know there's a little boat in front of us. Anyway, the dark steel rectangular tower that we just passed was by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. His philosophy was that architects should focus almost exclusively on making the insides of buildings as useful as possible instead of the outsides ornate, so he favored those rectangular patterns. Now, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe was a professor. Not all his students liked rectangles as much as he did. On the right side of the boat, these two circular towers were designed by one of Mies van der Rohe's students. The two circular towers on the right are called Marina City. Marina City is from 1968 by Bertrand Goldberg. Goldberg was inspired by nature. He said there are no right angles or square shapes in nature. He wanted to build round, natural-looking shapes for people to live in. And did you notice those winding spiral parking structures? So, when Marina City went up in the 1960s, not many people lived in the city center of Chicago. So in order to attract residents to make the move downtown, Goldberg filled Marina City with amenities. It had its own grocery store, movie theater, bowling alley, skating rink, marina, and its own parking ramps, which you can still see right behind us, those winding spiral parking structures. Folks, having seen them, you might have gotten nervous imagining cars falling off and into the river. There's no need to worry, that's only happened twice. That's true, but the whole truth is that it never happened on accident or due to foul play. Both times were filmed stunts. One's for Steve McQueen's movie The Hunter, and the other was for an auto insurance commercial. Now, on the right side of the boat, this red brick building on the right side is the Reed Murdoch Center. It's 110 years old, and it was originally a canned goods warehouse back when the river was our port. Ships would come in from Lake Michigan and dock at warehouses like this to load and unload goods. It's a mixed-use office building today, but it remains a window to the river's industrial past. And we still have a commercial maritime port on Lake Michigan in Chicago, but the Port of Chicago is on the south side today, not downtown on the river like when the Reed Murdoch Center was built. Folks, look right in front of us. Directly ahead of us, way up high, is the Salesforce Tower. That's the one that says Salesforce on it. The Salesforce Tower was just finished last year, designed by Pelly Clark Pelly Architects. It's an office tower, just finished last year in 2023. Now, it was designed by Pelly Clark Pelly. That's the legacy firm of Cesar Pelli. Now, after this bridge, I need you to pay attention. I always try and point something out here that's worth it, but tricky. So you need to look right when I tell you. If you look closely up to the right, you might notice there's actually a stone building here. Thank you for the pity laugh. You're right, it's easy to spot. On the right side of the boat, this is the Merchandise Mart. Extra large and in charge. On the right side of the boat, the Merch Mart is from 1932 by Graham Anderson Probst and White. It is home of the, well, it was the biggest building in the world in 1932 by floor space. 400,000 square meters of space, which is 4.2 million square feet. Now, it's Art Deco style, defined with vertical lines, geometric ornamentation, and stair-stepping setbacks up at the top. That's Art Deco style. Now, it was originally paid for by Marshall Field's department stores to consolidate their many warehouses into one giant warehouse on the river. It's a mixed-use office building today, and up until 2008, the U.S. Postal Service gave the Merchandise Mart its own unique zip code. That was 60654. It's a mixed-use office building today, and it was designed by Graham Anderson Probst and White. Okay, now folks, we are approaching the fork of the river. This is where the three branches of the Chicago River meet. The main branch behind us, the north branch to the right, and the south branch to the left. This fork in the river is called Wolf Point. No one is sure where the name Wolf Point came from, but the name Wolf Point is actually older than the city of Chicago. I would suspect that someone probably saw a wolf at some point. And as we turn from moving west on the main branch to heading north on the north branch, we're going to bounce to the left side of the boat. I'm not going to talk about that one yet. Don't worry, we'll talk about it later. In front of us to the left, there's this glass tower behind the red spiral sculpture. The glass tower behind the red spiral on the left is River Point. It's by Picard and Chilton from 2017. Now it is LEED Platinum certified. That's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Two key factors in making it so environmentally friendly are that it was made using recycled materials originally, and it uses river water to supplement its air conditioning. It brings water in from the river, circulates it as coolant in the AC, and then releases it back to the river cleaner than it found it. We're going to stick to the left. In front of us to the left, there's that red brick building. The red brick building on the left is called Fulton House. It's the oldest building on the tour. It's 126 years old and was originally another warehouse on the river. Now, it was remodeled by architect Harry Weiss into a residential building in the 1980s. Look at the porthole windows up near the top of this brick building. You see, Harry Weiss is a guy who likes boats. He likes to put nautical theming on his architecture. In that case, he added those porthole windows when he remodeled Fulton House from a warehouse into a residential building. And then in front of us to the left, there's a row of 4 townhouses with sloping roofs on the left. Those are the Chicago River Cottages. They're also from 1988 by Harry Weiss. Now, they have porthole windows and metallic spiral stair towers like you'd find on boats. Now, the sloping roofs of the river cottages are also nautical. We'll see why in a moment. After this bridge, look to the left and behind us above the bridge. The 2 sloping roofs of the river cottages are meant to resemble the sails of sailboats racing each other as well. All by Harry Weiss, the architect who likes boats. Now on the right side of the boat, this long building on the right side of the boat, long building with long rows of windows, that's the East Bank Club. The East Bank Club is from 1979. It is a high-end, exclusive fitness facility. That means expensive gym. Being a high-end gym in Chicago, Barack and Michelle Obama, Rahm Emanuel, Michael Jordan, and Oprah Winfrey have all had memberships at the EBC. The windows are not original. In the 70s, people were not generally interested in looking at the Chicago River. It was dirtier and smellier with weirder things than us floating around in it. But after the Federal Clean Water Act, we worked hard to clean up our waterways, and those windows were added to let people enjoy the newly improved river view. Now, if you look on the left, these days people even like to live along the river. On the left side of the boat is Kinsey Park, a gated community of 70 brick row homes. These 70 homes on the left sell for about $2.5 million each these days. Now, if the neighborhood sounds nice and you think you just spotted yourself the cheaper option to live there, I'm sorry to tell you, the green house on the left is not a residency. That is called a bridge house. It is owned by the city. It houses the controls to lift the drawbridge. We'll talk about the drawbridges in the city later in the tour. Folks, on the right side of the boat, this red brick building on the right is from 1909. It's a commercial printing, well, it was originally built to be a commercial printing company, Wallace Printing. It's been adaptively reused into residences. That's when those balconies were added. Now, metal balconies added to the outside wall of a building are often an indicator that a building has undergone adaptive reuse, which is changing it extensively on the inside while trying to preserve the outside, but often while still adding something like balconies if you're making it into a residential building. Now, folks, we're going to look forward and up to the right. Ahead of us, up to the right, there's the glass tower with the white steel beams pointing up the walls in a chevron pattern. That's Erie on the Park. And then to the right of Erie on the Park, there's a glass tower with balconies that resemble scaffolding. That one's Kingsbury on the Park. Erie on the Park and Kingsbury on the Park are from 2002 by Lucien Lagrange, and they were Chicago's first examples of European industrial style, which is defined as appearing incomplete or under construction, even though they are complete. Now, beyond the trees, to the right, there's a blue glass tower with concrete sides. Beyond the trees to the right, there's a blue glass tower with concrete sides. That's the Montgomery. It's from 1971 by Minoru Yamasaki, and it was originally a corporate headquarters. It's a residential condo tower today, but it was originally the headquarters of Montgomery Ward Catalogs. Now, we'll talk about them more in a moment, but first, look directly to the right. In the blue sky, in the distance to the right, behind that little black building you can see to the right, you can see the top of a white antenna, and then beyond that little black building there's a dark steel tower with two white antennas on top. That is the John Hancock Center. The Hancock Center is from 1969 by Skidmore, Owings and Merrill. It's the 5th tallest building in Chicago. It was the tallest building in the city for 4 years, and it often gets confused with the current tallest building in the city, which we will talk about later in the tour. That one's the Hancock Center, though. It's the 5th tallest from 1969. Now, in front of us to the right, there's that light-colored building with more adaptive reuse balconies on the outside. That was the old headquarters to Montgomery Ward. So, Montgomery Ward's was a retail giant founded in the 1880s by Mr. Aaron Montgomery Ward here in Chicago. They were the largest retailer in the world by annual sales at various points in the early 20th century. At the peak of their success, they didn't own a single physical store. They were only a catalog mail-order retailer, and they were headquartered here in Chicago their entire existence from the 1880s until 2001. This was their old headquarters. It's from 1912 by Schmidt, Garden, and Martin Architects. And then after this bridge, we're going to look up onto the roof of it. Because after this bridge, if you look to the right and up and behind us, on the roof of the building behind us there's a green sculpture. That's the Spirit of Progress lighting the way. It's by Augustus St. Gaudens from 1893, although technically that one's a replica from the 1920s. And then here on the right, this huge building on the right side of the boat is the old main warehouse to Montgomery Ward. It's also from 1912, also by Schmidt, Garden, and Martin. Now, when Montgomery Ward went out of business in 2001, portions of this warehouse stood abandoned until 2004, when a new owner of it, determined to lease out all the space, put it under adaptive reuse, and in remodeling it extensively, they found about 300 pairs of old roller skates. Now, those skates were not gifts that never got shipped from the catalog. Montgomery Ward was always innovating in how to most efficiently operate and encourage their employees to skate along their warehouse to fulfill their orders quickly. And it wasn't only Montgomery Ward's doing that. That was a pretty common practice in the industry back then. It's a very mixed-use building today. It's residential on the north end. It's offices on the south end. There's a little bit of retail on the first couple floors. Now, folks, at this point, I'm going to shift gears to talking a little bit about Chicago history. Now, folks, my history lesson is a good opportunity for you to walk around the boat